Hi folks. So in this video, I'm going to be showing some things I've been playing around with in terms of controlling the camera, because I was having quite a lot of frustration recently with that. So I thought I'd spend some time experimenting and trying out some new things. And yeah, I'm going to be showing here what I've learned. And actually these things that I'm doing, I've not actually seen anybody else doing or showing on YouTube. So yeah, perhaps somebody finds it useful. And with that said, let's get on with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into front view. I'm going to center the monkey, and I'm going to go and set up my camera view. Let's just pull back a little bit and go into the camera viewport display and just get rid of the image outside of the frame, like this. Okay. So let's give ourselves some more frames to work with. 600. And if I hover over here and then press home, it'll zoom out to 600. Let's use it again. I'm going to put it into record mode. And I'm going to press play and I'm going to record a little animation. All right, so I want to just find out where my first frame is. It's 23. And the last frame is 433. So let's just zoom to that and just check it. Okay, so now obviously it's a very jerky and very crappy animation. The general movement is okay, it's what I want, but it's very, it's very jerky. So we can go into the, let's pull out the let's put out the graph editor. Select the camera and bring our curves into view. Okay, so what we can do is we can smooth out our curves by pressing Alt and then the letter O. And we can do that repeatedly. Now, if we watch the animation again, it's a lot smoother. Okay, but I mean, if we want to now edit our animation in some way, that can be difficult. I mean, what we can do, if I just go into full view, what we can do is we can just select some points, some frames. Then we can go over here, change this to 2D cursor. If I now put this over here and I press S and then X, we can move our animation in time like this. And we can even put on the proportional editor and have some control over the fall off of that edit. Okay, but apart from that, if you actually wanted to do, if I, for instance, go to this frame here, say here, and I decide that at this particular point of the animation, I want the camera to be further away, or to be in a little bit of a different place in space, just to be somewhere else. Say I want it to be a little bit lower, okay? Now to come in here and to change these curves, to change the animation in that way is very difficult. I almost wouldn't know how to do that in this. It becomes very messy because you're dealing with 6 curves here, and it's a nightmare. So I'm going to show a different way of doing this. So let's just get rid of that. Let's go back to the beginning. So I'm going to use an add-on called the action recorder, which is right here. And in fact, I'm just going to pull out another page here. We're going to set up some actions. Basically, Action Recorder can automate a load of actions for you and let you do something which would otherwise be quite a nightmare to do, or a lot of hassle anyway. It would take much longer. So yeah, all will become clear in a moment. So the first thing I need to do is create a new macro right here. Then I'm going to press here. I'm going to press OK. Okay, I'm going to name this, and I've got my instructions up here. I'm going to name this Advanced 10 frames. And I'm going to copy in this bit of code here. Like that. Advanced 10 frames. Okay, let's just check that. And what I've got is I've got a hotkey on this play button here. Now, there is actually a problem with this macro, is that sometimes it becomes impossible to either edit or add a hotkey to this. I don't know why. Maybe it's a bug with the add-on. So actually, at the end of this video, I'm going to add a little extra bit at the end, which just shows how to deal with that. But, well, I've basically got my hotkey assigned. So if I press it, okay. So you can see with this first instruction, we're advancing 10 frames each time. Okay. The next one is going to be this action here. This is going to take us into object mode. So we're going to call this one go into object mode. Press OK. And so to test it, let's just select Susan. Let's go into edit mode. Okay. So if I now press my hotkey, which is the play button, we're going to first advance 10 frames and then go into object mode. And that's indeed what happens. Okay. The next one is going to be this one. So we need to select our camera. So I need to press this and then select object and camera. And we can test that. So if I press my hotkey, then we should advance 10 frames, be in object mode, and the camera should be selected. Let's try that. Right, and that's what happens. Okay, and the last action is going to be set up in a slightly different way. Basically, what I want to do is because I've now, with this last action, I've selected the camera. So now the last thing I want to do is I want to put the 3D cursor onto the camera. So by doing that, to do that, I select. It doesn't actually what object I select now. I can just select Susan. If I now press record, and I do Shift S, and then 2, and then stop, the 3D cursor has jumped to the selected object. Now, in this case, it was Susan, but what it will actually be when I do the whole action is it will be on the camera. So if I now put the 3D cursor over here, and Susan is selected, when I press my hotkey, the last thing which will be the we'll do for 10 frames. Object mode. So let's go into edit mode. Object mode. Camera will be selected, and the 3D cursor will be on the camera. So let's try that. Okay, and we can check that by just, yep. If we just zoom out, we can see the 3D cursor is here. Okay. So I can now go back to this page. I'm going to pull out here and go into top view on this side. Okay. Next, I've got another hotkey which will create a point. Okay, I've got F19, and all these extra curve objects, you'll only be seeing these if you have the add-on enabled, which is called curve extra objects, I think. So that's built into Blender. You don't need to download that. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is let's just go back to the beginning of our whole animation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just put my 3D cursor on the camera. Okay. The next action I'm going to do is I'm going to create a point there, and then I will, after that, start running through this macro. So I'll press my hotkey for this, then I'll create a new point. I'll do this action, a new point, this action, a new point, round and round and round, so that it follows, because of course, as I've advanced each 10 frames, the camera's going to be in a different position. So I'll be creating a point every 10 frames at the location of the camera. So you'll see now as I do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a point. Okay. I do my macro. We advance 10 frames. I create a point. And now I have to just go round and round and round. Actually, I'm just going to save this to be safe. Okay, so we've got a lot of points here. We need to just exit edit mode, and then select all our points. Just check that. Okay, importantly, we need to now select 3D. Okay, you can see over here we've got all our points selected. Now I'm going to do Control J, which is going to collapse all these points into one object. So let's do that. Now I have to scroll up And there we have it. And we can go into edit mode. And we see all our points here. I think actually we can delete one point. I think this one was a bit of a mistake, this last one here. Let's just delete that one. Right. Okay. Okay, the next thing to do is to select everything. And we're going to press on our keyboard. And let's just zoom in here. F, and that will now make a segment. And what we can actually do here, because we're creating a Bezier curve here, and with all the handles, it's kind of annoying and hard to see. So I'm going to go up here, going to change handles to none. See, now we only see the points without a handle on each side. So now I can continue pressing F, zoom out a bit. And just press F all the way around. Now, the last couple, you have to be a little bit careful. I learnt. Let's just zoom in and see. Okay, so that was our last point there. That's fine. Okay. Now what we can do is we can press V and then automatic, and that will slightly smooth. That will smooth out our curve quite nicely. And if we were to go here and put on our handles, we can see it's all lined up pretty nicely, but we can keep those turned off. Okay. So what we can do is we can go to our camera. Let's exit edit mode, go to our camera. We're going to go over here and we're going to delete all our original animation. We're also going to do everything else. Okay, so we need to now put our camera on our curve. So we're going to go, let's just name this point cam path. On our camera, we're going to go to our constraints and we're going to do a follow path. And let's choose our cam path and fix position. And now you can see over here that we're following a path all the way around. Okay, we see nothing in our camera view because we need to be facing the monkey. So we add another constraint, which is track 2. And that's going to be to Susan. Okay, and now we're going to be able to animate our camera along this path. And now, because we've deleted the original animation, we can now change this back to whatever we want. So we're going to go from 1 to 300. So I'm going to put in a keyframe here, go to the end, put this on 1, and put a keyframe there. Okay, so now we have our path. We can actually, if we wanted to, edit this path, which, as I explained earlier, if we go back to our original animation, once it's been recorded, to actually change the path that the camera is taking by editing those 6 curves, it would just be a nightmare, and I don't even know how you would start to do that. Okay, but now that we have our camera's path being controlled by just one simple curve, we can actually do that. So to show this, I'm just going to change up my view a little bit. Going to give ourselves 4 windows. Let's just have a side view over here. And let's split this one up as well. This one is good. It's a top view. And this is going to be like just a viewport. Okay, so let's see. Let's choose somewhere to change. Let's say around here. Let's say at this point of the animation, we want to have our camera further away than it is now. Okay, so just to make it easier, let's go to the frame here, which is actually closest to the point, which is, I guess, this one. We'll select our point. Okay, and what we want to do here in the viewport is we want to rotate around and just line up our camera with the monkey. Okay, and let's just zoom back out here. Okay, so if I now here switch this to view, we're first going to select the move tool. If I now select this to view, we know that if we move this, because we now see here our X and Y at a right angle, so we know that if we were to move this point in the Z axis, it will be coming directly towards the camera. Okay, so if I just press G, you can see it's moving in the X and Y. But if I press Z, and you keep your eye on the other viewports, you can see now that I can move it. It wasn't quite lined up, but this is close enough. Okay, and if I have proportional editing, which I do have turned on, and I now start to scroll that out, you can see we can very nicely control exactly what happens. If I press enter, and let's just have a look and see what that looks like. So this is our original animation. And at this point, the camera comes way back and then back in again. Yep. And like I said, to make this edit of the animation with that original camera animation at the beginning would have been a total nightmare. I don't know if you could even do that. Maybe you can. I'm curious if the pros have their tricks to do that. So if so, put it in the comments. Alrighty. So there's still more we can do with this. Let's see. We can also now put the camera on a rail to move it just simply back and forwards towards our sort of track point. So very important. Let's turn this off, record, otherwise we can really mess things up. Now I'm just going to remove a couple of viewports. Let's exit edit mode and go into a front view. I'm going to create a point and put it in 3D mode. Now I'm going to do EZ4 to extrude 4 meters. I'm going to select it again and do EZ minus 4 to extrude down 4 meters. So now we've got our origin here in the middle, and we've got a point here and a point here. Okay, let's just exit edit mode and slightly change our view here. Okay, we're going to rename this cam rail. Go over to our constraints, and we're going to do follow path and select our cam path and do fixed position. And now you can see our rail is tracking all the way around. We want it to face the monkey, so we need to add another one, which is track to, and then Susan. So again, if we now do this, we can see we're facing Susan all the way around. And the last thing to do is to go to our camera and change follow path from cam path to cam rail. And you can see now that our camera is snapped to our rail. And we have animation here, which we can clear. And now you can see if I put this to 0.5, we are exactly in the middle of our rail, so we're actually at the exact original position of our animation. Okay, we don't have any animation now because we need to animate the cam rail around the path. So let's just do that quickly. So we go here, we give it a keyframe, we go to the end, we put this on 1 and we give it a keyframe. So now, if I play, we have our original animation back. Like that, like so. But if I now go to our camera and we can just go into, let's go into rendered view for fun. We now have, it's easy to see if I go into top view here. We have control over our distance. So yeah, now we have a lot of control. We have control over our path, which we can very nicely edit. We can also change our simple forward, backwards distance from the camera. And yeah, there's one last thing which I'm going to show, which is quite cool. Okay, so one last thing we can do, which is kind of fun, is to actually shift the camera lens, which will shift the whole world relative to the camera lens. It's kind of hard to explain, so the best way is just to show it. So I'm going to select my 3D cursor and place it over here somewhere out of the way. I'm going to create a rectangle and let's just center that. Let's do scale. So press S and then 0.192. And here, change the Y to 0.008. So 1920, 1080. That's what we have here. We're going to go over to our geometry and change the fill mode to none. And let's give it a little bit of thickness like this. Okay, this is good. We can exit edit mode. Now I'm going to create a icosphere. Scale it down quite a lot. Like this. Okay. Now we're going to go over to here. And I'm going to do right click, copy as new driver. Going to go over to the camera settings here, and here I'm going to paste driver and right click again and open driver's editor. So I'm going to go up here and copy this. I'm going to put this in the description of the video. So I'm going to copy this. Here we need to change this to scripted expression and this to this. Nope, they didn't work. Let's try that one more time. Okay, so for now I'm just going to delete the last part, which is /4. And for the question marks, we need to change that to this number here. So 13.950. Press OK. Close that for a second. Now, if we select our sphere, and let's just name this shift. Okay, so if we grab this and we move it on the x-axis only, you see that we're now shifting our whole world. See? So if I move it over here and I run our animation, you'll see that the animation is exactly the same. It's just like the whole world has just shifted to the left. We could do the same thing, just move it over here. And that's over there. Or back to the middle. Okay. So if I go back to the camera and open up the driver's editor, if I now put back again up here, the /4, we're now dividing it by 4. And you'll see that now, when I move the shift sphere on the X, it more or less corresponds distance-wise to the camera frame. But obviously, this really depends on your zoom on your camera and how far you are away from the object. So this is just an example of what you could do just to make these two match up. But if I was much further away from the camera, this value of divide by 4 wouldn't be correct. So that's just to let you know about that. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing for the y-axis. We're going to go back to here. We're going to do copy as new driver, back to the camera, and paste driver, open driver's editor, and same thing here. We want to copy this. The only difference between these two is that here is a plus sign instead of a minus sign. But obviously, I think that will depend on where your object actually is in world space. But this is just an example, of course. So again, we're going to do scripted expression. We're going to put this in, delete the question marks, and put in this number 10.828. Enter. And now selecting this again, and this time moving on the y-axis, we have the shift on the y. And if I just move it freely, it's like this. Okay. So this can be a lot of fun, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put into record. I'm going to press play, and I'm going to also animate this. So you can see, and that's just for fun. Let's just smooth this out a little bit. So yeah, you can see that you can actually do some camera, sort of dynamic camera movement stuff, which I honestly don't really know how you otherwise do this. Yeah. And just one last thing I can do for fun is I can select my shift ball, give it a new material, just emission, and bump up the strength. Let's turn off our guides, and then we're going to put it out into a float window. Can scale it down a bit and zoom it up. And then we're just going to pull this one over like this. Now I'm going to put this into rendered view and make it translucent. And now if I put it over the top like this, and one thing I forgot to do, which is I need to remove the keyframes on the shift ball. Okay, let's put it back. And now, if I press play and then shift G, I can actually, on screen, do my animation like that. So let's just record that for fun. Let's go back. And we have another way to control a camera directly on screen by shifting the lens or shifting the world or whatever you call it. Okay, and as promised, I'm just going to show how to fix the hotkey when you lose it here, because once you assign it, you can no longer reassign it or delete it. Okay, so you go up to the preferences and you go to, let's see, it's up here. It's the preferences, key map, screen global, and then go all the way down to the bottom, add new, and then you put that down and you put in AR.local, well, you can see it's here, play. Okay. And then let's just say I want to have F14 on there. That's done. And you can see it's now got the F14 hotkey. That's how you edit it. You can see, look, if I do now remove shortcut, and I do right click, I no longer have the option to assign a shortcut. That's the problem. So that's why you have to do this thing that I just showed you. That's it. Yeah. So I think that just about covers everything. Maybe somebody found this useful. If anybody thinks that there are easier ways to do what I'm doing or improvements, I'll be very curious to hear about it. So please put it in the comments. And with that, I will say, see you later and till the next time.